Hi. So today I wanted to talk through and answer the question of what are some experiences that I've gone through that are, I think, unique to me as a woman with Turner syndrome. So, one of the strangest experiences I think I can say I've had um, comes from the fact that people often mistake me for someone that is a good bit younger than I actually am. Um, so, for example, I can go into a lot of places out in public, especially when I'm with other older adults, like my sisters, who are at least 10 or more years older than me, uh, or if I'm with my parents walking places. I will sometimes get offered things that are clearly intended for kids. So, like, even in this past year, I'll give the example that I've walked into a store before with my mom. And as we were leaving, I was offered a lollipop. And it's a very awkward feeling because I can clearly tell right away that even just based on the way the person's talking to me, they're like, okay, they say asking me this question because they think I'm a kid. And like, so my response is generally like, oh, no, no thanks. I'm good for now. You know, occasionally I will explain. But the majority of the time, I'm just gonna quietly be like, oh, no, no thanks, I'm good. And I don't blame people for thinking I'm younger because I know what I look like. Uh, Given my short stature and the fact that I've got a younger looking face and a lot of energy, that would seem to lend itself toward what typically people would think of when they think of a kid. It's like, no, no. It just, yeah, it hurts a little bit inside when that happens. But it's like, yeah, I get used to it. It's, I kind of learned to accept the fact that when I go places and meet new people, they probably think that I'm somewhere in my early teens. So, one thing with Turner syndrome that I'd say would be a defining point of my life um, would be the social aspect of things. Uh, it's not an uncommon thing with Turner syndrome that social things are a challenge. Uh, for me, uh, at least what my mom tells me, growing up, I had so many issues. Like, I used to avoid eye contact with people. I think partially because it made me uncomfortable, especially with people wearing sunglasses. Like, my dad wearing sunglasses. For some reason, I always thought I was in trouble if he was talking to me while wearing sunglasses. I don't know why, but that was a thing. But I think it was also just, it took me a long time to understand that that was a social rule. Like, oh, when you talk to people, you gotta actually make eye contact with them. I also had a challenge growing up where I would talk at people instead of having conversation with people. So, like, if I had something I wanted to say to you, I would go up to you and I would say it. But then as soon as I finished saying what I wanted to say, we were done talking. And it took me a long time before I think that started fading out of my behavior. But I will say, I still can be a little bit impulsive sometimes. I don't always have that voice in my head working that's supposed to tell you, let's think before we say that. How might other people react to that? Or does this actually make sense with the entire context of what's being said? But overall, I think I can say the social things after high school got a lot better for me. I started getting involved in stuff like theater productions, and the theater community was pretty welcoming to me. Even though I only would associate with some of them when I was actively in a production with people. Otherwise, we just didn't see each other at all. That was a good thing. But the major thing that's improved my social life has been just over the course of this past year or so. I've done quite a few things branching out socially, and it's really paid off. For one, I started going to a Bible study at my church for young adults, and that has been really good. So if any of you from that group are watching, just know that I really appreciate you guys. But it's been a very welcoming group. And it's allowed me to actually make good connections with people who I feel comfortable spending time with and hanging out with. And then this year was also my first time going to a Turner Syndrome conference. It was out in Portland. And usually I'm not one to go out and do social stuff. I am very much a homebody. But the conference was a really good experience. And I would highly recommend it to anyone out there with Turners who has not been to a conference. So another thing that I'd say I've had to get used to and adjust to in my life is knowing that transportation may be a challenge for me. And that's going to be something I'm probably going to have to deal with the rest of my life. Now, don't get me wrong. Women with Turners can definitely learn to drive and aren't automatically going to be limited in their ability to drive just because of their condition. Like for me, I have my driver's license. And I would say I'm a pretty decent driver. It's just there are certain things in my perception of distance between things, and I have a slower processing speed, which makes different aspects of driving more of a challenge. So for me, I've been very lucky that where I live right now, I can get to my job, my church, grocery stores, basically anything local within the town I live in. I just will not drive on highways because lane changes and high speeds are just a bad idea for me personally. And yes, it's something I could probably let myself work on, but I'm like, I don't really want to do that though, until I know I'm gonna need to. So, being that I am 4'9", I will admit I do have a step stool. And I love my step stool. Honestly, I find scenarios where someone else can be in the room with me as I'm trying to access something, and I'm still going to go over my step stool and drag my step stool over and use it to get whatever I'm trying to get to, instead of asking for help.